Hello and welcome to a demonstration on SPSS using higher education data. There are 3 steps to this demonstration. We're going to talk about the objective of the model. We'll build a very simple model within SPSS, and then we're going to evaluate the results. The objective of this model is to determine why students are or are not enrolling into a particular university. We'll be using historical data within SPSS to make these evaluations. What we're seeing on the screen right now is the workbench within SPSS Modeler. I've already pre-built this model, so now let's walk through some of its important steps. I mentioned earlier that we were going to be evaluating historical student data, and this data is in the format of a source file. Let's click on that source file node, and we'll click Preview, and it's going to return about 10 rows of data, and it just gives us a quick insight of what our file looks like, and it also tells us which students historically have enrolled or have not enrolled. Now we'll click on the Type node. The Type node allows us to determine the role of each column. So which columns will be input and what will be the target. The target being what you're trying to predict. And in our case, we're trying to predict enrollment. The model type that we're using in this example is called a CHAID node. And this is often most utilized when the outcomes are a yes or a no answer. We're going to review some of the results of the CHAID model by clicking on this gold nugget, which is supposed to symbolize valuable data. Clicking inside the CHAID node, we're presented with a graph. And what this graph tells us is what is the most important predictor in determining why a student enrolls or doesn't enroll. SPSS has concluded the most important factor is financial aid, followed by an overnight stay on campus, and then followed by an alumni meeting. Now, if you recall from earlier, there were several other input fields, but these are the ones that SPS has deemed the most important. This is a decision tree, and in the prior graph, we saw key influencers in what encouraged students to either enroll or not enroll in a university, and this decision tree helps us break that data down further. Looking at node 0, we can see that there was 5,056 students that were offered enrollment at a university. 67% did not enroll, 33% did. The bar graph from earlier indicated that the biggest influencer on whether a student enrolled at the university or not was the percentage of financial aid that student received from the university. From node 0, financial aid is then broken down into 4 different financial aid buckets: 75%, 51% to 75%, and so on. In node 4, which are students that were offered 75% or more of their tuition covered by financial aid, 99% of those students enrolled in the university. In node 3, or the 51% to 75% financial aid group, only 54% of these students enrolled in the university and 46% did not. For node 3, SPSS can break down this data even further. And if we remember, the second most important influencer was overnight stays on campus. So in node 10, those are the students that did have an overnight stay on campus, and 93% of those students enrolled in the university. In node 9, those who didn't have an overnight stay, only 37% of these students enrolled. An insight that we can find from this decision tree is that if the university wanted to enroll more students from the 51 to 75% financial aid group, it should send more of those potential students on overnight visits. Those who went on overnight visits were much more likely to enroll in the university. Looking at node 2, which is the financial aid group of 1% to 25% and 26 to 50%. Only 45% of these students enrolled in the university. SPSS is also able to break down this group even further. Instead of overnight visits, for node 2, SPSS determines that the most influential thing is alumni meetings. In node 7, which are potential students that did not meet with alumni, only 36% of those students enrolled. In node 8, which are potential students that did meet with alumni, 78% of these students enrolled. Another insight that can be drawn from this decision tree is that if the university wants to increase its enrollment for students who qualify between 1% and 50% of financial aid, that the university set up meetings with these potential students with alumni, greatly increasing their chance of enrollment. Thank you for watching this demonstration on SPSS. If you have any questions, please contact eCapital Advisors.